What do we want? Freedom. How many do we want? 4. So here we go. President Roosevelt spoke eloquently of a future world order founded on the essential human freedoms: freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom from want, and freedom of fear. The 4 freedoms became Roosevelt's favorite statement of the Allied aims. They embodied, Roosevelt declared in a 1942 radio address, the rights of men of every creed and every race, wherever they live, and made clear the crucial difference between ourselves and the enemies we face today. Basically, Roosevelt had this smart idea with the freedoms, and he thought that it would be cool to have 4 of them. Speech, because it is important for people to say what they think. Worship, because it's religion and it's in the Constitution. Want, because we all want to have pretty things. And fear, because every human deserves to live a life free of fear. So back to the serious things. As a means of generating support for the struggle, the 4 freedoms provided a crucial language of national unity. But this unity obscured underlying divisions concerning freedom. Although some Americans looked forward to a worldwide New Deal, others envisioned free enterprise replacing government intervention in the economy. Consequently, this dispute did not make the Americans happy at all. I mean, they were happy, they were just different from each other and wanted different things. And when some want a worldwide New Deal and others free enterprise, things can get a little messy. But thankfully, the World War II came along and people had to forget about their own interests and put their nation's interests first. And here comes labor. One common theme about Americans is money. Americans love their money down to the nickel. But during war, money usually goes bye-bye. During World War II, the American government had to find a way to fuel the American forces for food, supplies, equipment, etc. One new way of funding this was through war bonds. If a citizen bought a war bond, they were promised a refund plus interest after the war was over. Okay, let's get to talk about industries. Soldiers help to win wars, but the laborers support the people on the field and are the ones dedicating their lives to the winning cause. The war required a need for industrial labor jobs such as welders, electricians, and riveters. FDR required a nation to produce a certain amount of military weapons a year, which was only one step in a more controlled economy than before. Gasoline and tires were rationalized, plastics were developed to replace the need of metal, and more factories were opened up and used. The new wave of industrial workers, many of whom lacked a job during the Depression, were more than excited to serve their country and earn money. William Purfley, an employee on the Homefront, says the following: "I felt like something had come down from heaven. I went from 40 cents an hour to $1 an hour. I felt at last I was getting up in the world." On to women. Ever heard of Wonder Woman? That's basically women during World War II. Due to many men leaving heavily male-dominated jobs to fight, someone else had to step in. So many women stepped up and became 1/3 of the American workforce. If a soldier was sent overseas, his wife and children generally returned to their hometown, often moving in with other family members. If a serviceman shipped out while his wife was pregnant, he knew he probably would not see that baby until he or she was a toddler. Babies conceived just before the husband and wife were called goodbye babies. But let's go back to the workforce. It was a big change. Because of the mass production of weapons, the new modern woman earned more than ever before and risked her life more too. Explosive manufacturing implied limited prevention in actual explosions, and the smaller accident with a mine fuse could lead to blowing apart an entire factory. Therefore, women forced unions like the United Auto Workers to confront issues like equal pay or equal work, maternity leave, and child care facilities for working mothers. But even on the happy home front, there were not only winning sides. Japanese Americans and aliens suffered the worst treatment from the US government during World War II. They were banned from housing, public areas, jobs, voting, and owning land. It is true that the Pearl Harbor attack was the main trigger that determined America to enter the war, but the Japanese Americans did not play too much of a role in it. They simply lived in the West Coast in California and contributed to agricultural production and harvest. Nothing to do with the military at all. but members of the public pushed for the removal of the Japanese from the West Coast after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and there was little the Japanese could do. At the time, there were 80,000 Nisei, which were the native-born U.S. citizens, and 47,000 Japanese immigrants. The Executive Order 9066, signed in February 19th, 1942, affected all Japanese Americans and basically relocated American citizens of Japanese, German, and Italian origins in the internment camps. The government justified that their relocation was an attempt to eliminate a perceived threat. But this did not make the situation any better. Those people still lost their homes and belongings and were to be ostracized by society even after the internment was over. However, no American Japanese was ever found guilty of treason in the war meantime. So one can infer that the internment practice was a little too aggressive, I think. Okay, time for a recap. The war was bad and good for America on the home front at the same time. It brought women into the workforce and fueled industries, but also separated families and brought discrimination to American citizens, only because their parents were from Japan or Italy or Germany.